It's just to lie a little bit. The first draft of a book should take no more than 3 months. I think timid writers like passive verb for the same reason timid lovers like passive partners. What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Grace, and on this channel we talk about writing tips and strategies to solve your writing problems and inspire you to write. So today I'm going to be talking about writing advice from Stephen King on writing. Before I jump into it, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave your comments down below, and if you do not want to miss any of my future videos, turn on post notification, and let's get started. So I'm going to be taking the writing advice from the book on Writing by Stephen King, a memoir of the craft. This book is a part masterclass and a part memoir about writing. And if you do not know who Stephen King is, he's a best-selling author that has written over 80 books. Like, he's an amazing writer. So we are going to be reviewing his book. This is really a review because I'm just getting some tips and advice from the book. So if you want a full book review, leave your thoughts and comments down below and I'll consider that. Unfortunately, I do not have the hardcover of this book, so we will be looking at the ebook version, which is on my phone over here, to talk about these tips, and I'm going to quote his words. So let's get started. The first tip is writing is telepathy. He says writing offers the purest distillation. He goes on to talk about a rabbit in a cage with a red cloth, and he describes it, and after describing it he says he sent those words to us in telepathy. That means we engaged an act of telepathy between the reader and him, because we are not in the same room with him, neither are we like sitting close by with him, but he wrote those words in his book, and we are reading his words currently where we are in a totally different time. So when he says we're engaging in telepathy, he's sending us something, we're receiving it even without contact, even without seeing him, even without the bare minimum of communication. Just by reading his book, we are receiving his words. That's what he means by telepathy, and I think that's a very beautiful way to see writing. I think it really shines on what writing truly is. Isn't that beautiful? I think it is. The next advice is don't come to the page lightly. And the page, I mean your manuscript, your document, whatever system or medium you're using to write. He says you can approach the act of writing with nervousness, excitement, hopefulness, or even despair. The sense that you can never completely put on the page what's in your mind and heart. He goes on to talk about different feelings we the writers feel when we want to write, different strong emotions and feelings. But he says in whatever you do not come to the page lightly. Those emotions you feel, different wandering of varied emotions you feel, they are important when coming to write. Don't come lightly. Don't see writing as something that's very nonchalant. I don't know the word for it, but don't come lightly to the page. Take your manuscript seriously. Okay. He says if you can't take writing seriously, it's time for you to close the book. The next advice is the road to hell is paved with adverbs. As funny as how this advice sounds, I find a lot of truth in it. Adverbs are like dandelions. If you have one on your lawn, it looks pretty and unique. If you fail to root it out, however, you find 5 the next day, 50 the day after that, and then, my brothers and sisters, your lawn is totally, completely and profligately covered with dandelions. But then you see them for the which they really are, but then it's too late. Basically, he's saying how dangerous adverbs are. He had to use the hell to like emphasize on what he means. Stephen King believes that adverbs are going to ruin your writing. Now I have to ask you, do you agree with this? When it comes to adverbs, my personal opinion is that people use adverbs to modify what they're saying. They want to show how well the action is being done. Personally, I think adverbs may not be the enemy. You shouldn't use it as often. Stephen King says avoid it as much as you can, and I think that's actually good advice, but I do not think it is the enemy. I don't think you need to use it as often as possible, but it's not the enemy, and hell is not paved with adverbs. That's my verdict. So what do you think? Do you agree with him? Answer that in the comments below. The next advice is do not use the passive voice. Stephen King stressed on this so much in his book. I believe if passive voice was a human being, it would have killed him or her. Stephen King says, I think timid writers like passive verb for the same reason timid lovers like passive partners. Now that's a joke that I don't know what to say. It's not funny and it's funny as well. The passive voice is safe, he says. There is no troublesome action to contend with. The subject just has to close his eyes and think of England. So basically what Stephen King is saying is that people that love using passive voice, they want to play it safe, they are timid. I think I'll somewhat agree with him on this one. So when I write something and I'm going through the edits of it, or I'm like revising whatever I wrote, I tend to see these passive voices like randomly sprinkled everywhere, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, this passive voice, I have to remove it. From my experience, I think people use passive voice because it's easy, it's like comfortable, because they can. People use passive voice because they can. That's it. Period. Stephen King says using passive voice is weak, it's secretious, and it is frequently torturous. I want to say Stephen King really hates passive voice, and I somewhat agree with him on this one. Passive voice should not be your best friend. Go active, boo. Go active. The next advice is one word at a time. In an interview with a radio talk show, Stephen King was asked, how do you write? His reply was one word at a time. This simply left the interviewer feeling shocked because he thought Stephen King was joking. So I think what this means is that your writing should be one word at a time. This just means to keep writing, and I feel like that's a very good advice, because beginning writers, when they think about the amount of words they need to write to finish their book, they get overwhelmed. But when you think about it this way, I just have to write one word after another and one word, then it helps you like see the bigger picture, you know, to keep writing, and eventually you will finish your book. That's like a very quality advice. The next advice is writing is like a creative sleep. Stephen King says, I think we're actually talking about creative sleep when we talk about writing. Like your bedroom, your writing should be private, a place where you go to dream. Your schedule is about the same time every day. I totally feel him on this one. Should I say feel? I totally agree with him on this one. Basically saying that, you know, the way you go to bed, like you just go to sleep to relax. Writing is something like that, but it's called creative sleep because while you're going to rest and you're going to dream, you know, those sweet dreams while you're sleeping, writing, you're going to like dream, but you know, create those wonderful, you know, those wonderful plots, those plot twists, all of those beautiful imaginations on paper. So I totally agree with the concept of calling writing creative sleep. I think like that's a very beautiful way to see writing. Now, do you agree with that? That's my question. The next advice is don't wait for the muse. I personally agree with this one like 101%. I used to say this as well. I believe you shouldn't wait for inspiration to come before you write. And he says, don't wait for the muse. As I've said, he's a hard-headed guy who's not susceptible to a lot of creative fluttering. This isn't the Ouija board or the spirit world we are talking about here, but just another job like laying pipe or driving long haul trucks. Yes, so earlier I didn't think to say this one, but Stephen King says treat writing like a job, treat it like your business, and I totally agree with that one. You need to take your writing very seriously. It's a job. Yes, it's a job. Okay, when he says don't wait for the muse, I totally agree with that. You don't need to wait for inspiration to come before you write. I personally think you need to find the muse or find the inspiration to write. You don't need to wait and sit down. I'm going to get this idea, when inspiration hits me, I'm going to write. I agree with him totally on this one. He says your job is to make sure the muse knows where you're going to be every day from 9 till noon or 7 till 3. So that's basically his schedule or something like that. So your job is to make sure your muse knows where you're going, period. So what do you think? Do you think waiting for inspiration to come is the right way, or you find inspiration? I believe you need to find inspiration, not wait for inspiration. Get to work, find inspiration. Thank you. The next creative advice is liars prosper. So this one is a very funny one. Personally, I was like, what? But I see some truth in what it says. Funny because it says liars prosper, but there's some truth in it. You get. Anyways, I'm going to read out what he said. He said, honesty in storytelling makes up for a great many stylistic faults. As the work of wooden prose writers like Theodore Dreiser and Anne Ryan shows, but lying is a great unrepairable fault. Liars prosper. No question about it. That's what he said. So I think what Stephen King means here is that during storytelling, you do not have to be 100% honest. You know, people say make your story sound real. Let it have a sense of like realness, like real life, real human living. But when it comes to what Stephen King is talking about lying, he's saying you shouldn't make every aspect shine like the way reality works, right? No matter how real you want your story to be, you have to lie a little. I wouldn't call it lying because it's fiction, you're writing, so I don't know why he's calling it lying. But in his aspect, the terms he used are pretty funny to me, but I totally understand what he means. If you have a different meaning to what he means, please leave it down in the comments below, let's discuss. And if you agree with him that liars prosper, tell me in the comments down below. So let's go on. He says lives prosper, no question about it, but only in the ground soup of things, never down in the jungles of actual composition, where you must take your objective one bloody word at a time. If you begin to lie about what you know and feel while you're down there, everything falls down. So when lying, there is a level to the line. There's a level to the line. You're supposed to lie a little bit, but not all the way down when you're composing some things about your characters. There's really different meanings to what this means. It can mean something different for me, it can mean something different for you. So tell me what you think about the idea of lying in your stories. That term is funny when it comes to fiction, but anyhow, tell me what you think in the comment section, and do you agree with this creative advice? The next creative advice: the first draft of a book should take no more than 3 months to write. So let's read what he has to say. He says, I believe the first draft of a book, even a long one, should take no more than 3 months, the length of a season. Any longer, and for me at least, the story begins to take on an odd foreign feel, like a dispatch from the Romanian Department of Public Affairs. So Stephen King is very funny with all these things he says. So now the idea of using 3 months to write your first draft, I think that's very, very, very good, honestly. But I wouldn't say that would work for a first time writer. So he's basically sharing his experience and what he thinks is good, but it's not like proposing that that is the standard. But personally, I feel like 3 months may not work for beginning writer. This is not to say every beginning writer will take more than 3 months to write. People have different paces, and I understand that. But someone that's not written a full-fledged first draft before, they are still trying to like find their way around writing a book. So 3 months will not do it, unless you have a very fast way of writing a book. You have this very, very fast way of learning things and just writing a book. I think it varies between people, but generally 3 months is a very good amount of time to write your first draft. Keep in mind your first draft is not a novel, so you have time to like edit and all of that stuff. So your first draft is just your manuscript, you know what I'm talking about. So I think that's a very good idea. The next and last creative advice is life isn't a support system for art. So Stephen King says that put your decks in the corner, and every time you sit down to write, remind yourself why it isn't in the middle of the room, because life isn't a support system for art, it's the other way around. I totally agree with this one, because people rely on music, art, books, and all of these things, even in their roughest times, because art gives life. Art is so beautiful. When he says life is the support system for art, this basically means that life relies on art, not art relying on life. You see that people that create art, like the artists, the musicians, writers, and all of these wonderful, amazing people that create art, people rely on what they create for sustenance. And I mean that in so many different ways. When you're sad, what do you listen to? Listen to music. You read books to get enlightened. You read books to get entertained. You watch videos. All of these are created, and all of this stems from art. So that's basically what it means. Life is not a support system for art, but art supports life. Do you understand? So that's the last creative advice for this video, and with that I've come to a wrap of this video. Thanks for watching this far. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave your thoughts and comment down below. And if you don't want to miss any of my future videos, turn on post notifications, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.